not all. Yeah. Thank you, Michael, now for your our meaningful time, for leading us all into a meaningful time of worship. Um, Today I'm actually a little bit confused. I am confused because I have two sermons that I kind of prepared, and I do not know which one to preach from. Um, let's see. Which one do you want to do? One or two? Random. Anyone? Ones? Who all want ones? Okay, who all want twos? Okay, so many on twos. Okay, in that case, we'll go with two. Interesting, huh? I know, yeah. Sometimes what happens is you start dwelling on a passage with what life throws at you and what aspects are running in your life. The passage would mean something to you. And then fast forward 1 week or fast forward 3, 4 days, you go back to visit the passage, and the passage speaks much more prominently on a different aspect altogether from what you have initially thought of. One of the biggest problems of life that we often come across is that we see that we have, whenever we face a situation, we have a choice. A choice to either choose something that's going to what we feel bring a good outcome, or also a choice to simply leave without doing anything at that particular moment, just to back off from the situation, and also a choice to lean into the situation and do something the other side which would maybe bring a bad consequence, right? We always face choices. Just as how our Michaelana so beautifully explained. Yesterday, what happened was I was kind of driving back to my house from work, and then on the way back, my wife calls me up and she's like, "Oh, where are you?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'm 15 minutes away. I'm 15 minutes away. I'll be hopefully reaching there in 15, 20 minutes maximum." Then she says, "Okay, so what do you want to have for food?" Typical question which a wife should ask. Wonderful question. I said, "Okay, I'll just make biryani. I will make biryani. You don't make it this time. Let me make biryani." And trust me, yesterday was the first time I've ever made biryani in my life. I've cooked a lot of curries and I've cooked a lot of other aspects, but I've never made biryani in my life, and so I did not know what to expect. So I went back home, cut all the chicken, took all the onions and everything, cut them all, made sure that I had everything, hopefully. And I was like, okay, since I do not know, let me try to, search for knowledge in YouTube. And so I opened YouTube, the great, all the master chefs of YouTube taught me. And then all of a sudden, so the guy starts, he puts chicken, and then he said, "We need to marinate this, so put masala." So I have all the masala, so I put them all in. And he said, "Yogurt." I was like, "Yeah, I have yogurt. I'm prepared for this." I put yogurt in. And then all of a sudden he said, "Fried onions." And I have no fried onions with me. I just had normal onions, which I have to then again fry. So the process, so I thought initially that the process was going to take 45 minutes to 1 hour, hopefully. It ended up with almost being 1 hour, 45 minutes, or 1.5 hours approximately. And mind you, the biryani did not come out as tasty as I expected it to be. The conclusion was it's still a bad thing. Halfway into it, like when the masalas are all getting cooked and the rice is yet to, we're yet to put the rice and we're yet to boil, my wife says, "I'm really hungry." There's no turning back. I can't make this masala which I prepared for biryani turn into a chicken curry, and all of a sudden I can't cook a chicken curry and just go with the flow, right? It doesn't work that way. So it's too late to back off. So the anxiety and every single thing just made me take decisions faster and faster, making the whole thing kind of go bad, pretty much. I'm not again blaming her, because even I was hungry and I wanted it to be done in 45 minutes. It didn't just happen in 45 minutes. Sometimes we go into a path that is set before us. Sometimes we come across a path that is already there, and then we start our journey in that path, and halfway into it, 25% way into it, it seems something is wrong. We feel things are just not working out for us. We want to back off the decisions that we started taking. But the first decision or that we take in order to get into the path and just forces us to make more and more bad decisions in our life. And at the end of the whole path, we just land up in a place where we never wanted to be in the first place. Has it ever happened to you? Sometimes. I know some of us deep inside we feel, yeah, that's exactly how I feel about my wife. No, I don't feel that way about my, just saying. Please turn to Proverbs chapter 4. We'll be going from 14th verse to 23rd verse. The book of Proverbs chapter 4, verses 14 to 23. Today I'll be talking about the path of the wicked. The path of the wicked. Proverbs chapter 4, 14 onwards. So it very clearly says, do not enter the path of the wicked. Now, mind you, whenever we come across such kind of a saying, we just simply take for granted saying that, okay, God is asking us not to do something wicked. God is now asking us not to do something bad. But then the problem with that is we are completely removing the exact meaning that is prescribed for that verse. It says very clearly, do not enter the path of the wicked. There are three parts of this verse, like in this first, the first half of it. Which says, first of all, do not enter, which means entering into a path is something that we choose. It's not that the life situation makes us corners us into a location where without our knowledge, we take decisions. It's not that way. But the way it says is, it is we who consciously choose the path of the wicked. Second aspect is, it says it's a path, which means it's a journey where you start at the beginning and then you end up at a final destination, right? So it's a path that you take. First thing, it's a choice that we make. Second thing, it's a path, which means that there is a destination to it. And thirdly, it says the defining element of this path is wickedness. The first thing that I came to when I first read this verse, the first thing that came up to me was, why do we ever take a path? Why do we take a path? For example, if I go for trekking, right? If I try to go for trekking, when I go to the Squamish trekking not recently, almost 2 years ago, me, Gideon, and my beloved at that time roommate Prem, we went for trekking to one of the hikes near Squamish. It says before we entered the path, we were like, it was clearly warned to us. It was like, do not enter. This is not your average walk in the park, right? It's a sign placed right there. But we were all already hyped. We were all having a bag. We were all having a bottle. We were all having everything ready. We were all like, okay, yeah, it's okay. We'll fine. We'll just go. We'll just proceed. 10 seconds later, the meme that always comes up in YouTube and other places. 10 seconds later, Ashish was completely out of breath. My feet were like literally shaking and shivering. I was not able to take a step further because of the intensity of the hike, right? But then two brave young men, Prem and Gideon, strived forward. Because I was an asthma guy, so I had to wait. I was like, hey, you guys go, I'll come eventually, you guys go. So the two young men just strived forward and they started climbing even further. They climbed, and after a point of time, I don't know what happened. I'm still taking one step in 1 hour, and taking slow steps, trying to relax my breath, going up, and eventually I see both of them coming back. And their testimony was, bro, we are better, okay? We are better than the others. I was like, why? What happened? And then I was like, there was one Asian couple behind us. They saw us turn back, and the moment we turned back, they said, oh, these guys are only unable to do it, we'll also go back. And so they also came back with us. And so I didn't even go to the place where they went, I just came back. Why am I saying all this? A path is chosen to achieve something. We choose a path, a career path, to achieve something in that career. We take a path because we want to reach a destination, maybe the first peak, second peak, or third peak in Squamish, which we never reached. Or because the friends that we are with, they try to just take you along for the ride. So they're like, oh, we're all going, why don't you just join along? That's a path. The reason why we take, it's only known to us. The reason why we choose the path is also only known to us and obviously God. And then it says in 15th verse, do not enter, avoid it, pass it by, turn away, and pass on. Basically, walk past it. If there is a path of wickedness, and you know it's a path of wickedness, the Bible is basically asking you, avoid it, number one. Number two, just pass by it, turn away, or just pass on. Just walk past it. Just basically just let it go and go forward with it. The reason for that, the reason why it says that way in 15th verse is given in the 16th verse, where it says that a person, it basically talks about the personality of a wicked person, and they say that a wicked person cannot sleep unless they make someone stumble. And that's a place where I would want all of us to also understand. A wicked person who is in a wicked path, a person who is already reached the destination or who is already in the path of destination, not only tempts you to go into the same path, but also tempts you in order to, unless otherwise they make someone else stumble, or unless otherwise they make someone else take the same decision that they took, they wouldn't be happy with it. They wouldn't sleep. They won't have peace of mind. And then the 17th verse is where it kind of struck me, because the Holy Communion, the Holy Communion that we take normally, is only instituted by Jesus Christ in the New Testament, right? After Jesus Christ's birth, at the time of his death, Holy Communion. But if you look into the 17th verse, it says, they eat the bread of wickedness and they drink the wine of violence. Which basically means that they're taking a Holy Communion with wickedness and violence. Inherently, deep inside, the personality becomes in such a way that they cannot live their life without having that wickedness in their life or having the aspect of violence in their life. They just cannot live without evil in their life. And eventually, it says, but the path of righteousness, and then it goes into a different stream and it says, what is the path of righteousness? Contrasting the wickedness. Wickedness is not just a habit, and I want all of us to understand that. Many people, many a times, many of the people I talk with, they think that it's just a habit. At a point of time, we can break free of it. They say or they feel that they are in control of that habit. They feel that they are in control of whatever the situation or the path that they have taken. And they feel that, at any point of time I can just break off it and they can come back. It's in my hands. But the problem with wickedness is that it's not just a habit, it's a personality. Just as we come, like our beloved Sean, to the Holy Communion, to the altar, to take the Holy Communion, a wicked person comes to wickedness and violence in order to take his communion. And in Jewish customs and traditions, it says that the symbolic representation of bread is the symbolic, it basically means it symbolizes the basic sustenance from God, where you're saying that, okay, I'm eating food, I'm going to sustain myself spiritually, I can sustain myself physically, I can sustain myself irrespective of what happens. And then what happens is the bread is considered as a symbolic understanding of God's providence, whereas the wine is considered as or represents the joy and the abundance that comes from following God, right? And then it says in 18th verse, but the path of the righteousness, but the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn that shines brighter and brighter until the full day. The way of the wicked is like darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. And so it says, my son or my daughters, pay attention to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. They are not to escape from your sight. Keep them in midst of your heart, for they are life to those who find them and healing to all their body. Watch over your heart with all diligence, and from it flows the springs of life. Beloved friends, this evening, one thing I would want us all to understand and contemplate is, may it be the path of righteousness or may it be the path of wickedness. The path that we take is something that only we can choose at any given point of time, that we all know. And at the same point of time, it's also something that we consciously choose. It's not something that happens accidentally. It's not something that happens because there's no other hope and there's no other option, but it's a choice that we take intentionally. And that is a place where I would want all of us to marinate a little bit, just like the chicken I marinated yesterday night. The reason why most of us feel that the decisions that we made are wrong, the reason why most of us feel that the decisions that we took are wrong, and the reason why we end up in the wrong place in the first place, the Bible says that is only because of the path that we chose, the first choice. Every single day we are faced with numerous choices. Every single day we are faced or we are forced to make choices. But when we are forced to make choices, the place where a Christian is different from every other person in the world, a Christian disciple is different from every single other person in the world, is because of the aspect where fear versus faith comes to play. Fear versus faith. I would like Samuel, can you please open the PowerPoint presentation on desktop that says fear and faith? While he finds that, every single day while I was ministering in India or when I'm here, every single day I've met people inside the church, outside the church, and every single time they say that they are afraid of something or the other in their life. Every single day of my life. They're either afraid that they will lose their job, they're afraid that their marriage is not going to work, they're afraid that the future of their children is not so good, they're afraid of 150 things. No matter what happens, they're just afraid. But the problem is, we as Christians and we as believers of Christ, we as disciples of Christ, we do not realize that we are choosing fear instead of faith. We are choosing fear instead of faith. While both of us have different outcomes, I'm going to give a brief understanding of what does fear bring and what does faith bring. First and foremost, they both are same with regards to what is their personality, or what you can say as what the aspect of fear and faith. They both are pretty much the same. Fear wants you to believe that something negative will happen. Faith wants you to believe that something positive would happen, right? So if you take that into consideration, fear says that the pain that you may have, the pain that you have feeling is fatal. It may cause death. While faith says sickness is not prominent, God is in control. Right? Fear says the economy is slow, the economy is getting affected, and so you are going to be really in deep soup. Faith says, my God shall provide my needs through Jesus Christ. Fear says you have a lot of problems, you're never going to be happy. But faith says, greater days through Jesus Christ are ahead of you. The moment we believe in fear or believe in faith, right, the two aspects, that will become the seed that would get sowed into your hearts. The moment the seed gets sowed into your hearts, automatically your thought process goes that way. Remember what it says in Proverbs chapter 4, verses 23? What does it say? Watch over your heart with all diligence, from it flows the springs of life. Right? There's a person named, the scientist or a psychologist named Lissek. I'm sure I murdered the name. I think he would be crying in heaven or wherever he is. Lissek. Okay, Lissek. And his team developed a computer game. Yeah, it's okay, let's let it be. I'll explain the game to you. So, they created a computer game where they're trying to do this social experiment. They took a group of people, they put them in a room, and they all were given a computer. They had 200 rounds or maybe 100 rounds. We do not know how many rounds they have. So they have, for example, they have the shed here or the house here. And then they'll put a diagram of a field here. And there are two paths. The short path, which is a rocky path, what you could say, a path where the farmer who goes to the field to collect the crop would go. But at the same point of time, there's a longer route, which is a tar road, which is beautiful in the way it's constructed and everything, right? And so what happens is, it seems they made the people sit down and they gave them a light or some kind of a blinking icon. And they said, stop, right? Or it's a safe or danger. When it is safe and if you go through the shortcut method, it's fine. But it says danger, and if you go through the shortcut method, you get a small shock. Okay? That's how the game was rigged. And then afterwards, what happened was, the goal of the game is the farmer should reach the farm before the crows come and eat the crop. So if you if you take the shortcut method, well and good, you will go there, you will get the crop, everything is good, you will get more yield. But if you go to the long route, by the time you go there, your crop will only get 50% harvested. So the amount of crop that you harvest at the end of 200 cycles is very less. And so then they started this game, and then people started playing, and then every single time it's danger, they're not supposed to go. If it says you can go, if it's safe, then they will be able to go, right? That is the game. What they noticed in this game, is basically operating faith over fear. Go to the fourth slide, I presume, is the place where you have, next one. Yeah, this one. So you have the farmer who's supposed to go to the garden. If you go to the shortcut road, you are getting good yield, but at the same point of time, there is a risk of you getting electric shock. If you go to the long road, then what happens is you are not going to get good crop. At the end of 200 cycles, or at the end of the 200 times of your decision making, whoever gets the largest amount of crop is the winner of the game. That is the game. Now the problem with this is that they notice that after a point of time, because of the split-second decision making that people are trying to make, even though if it is danger or if it is safe, people always started to choose the first 5-6 times. They were okay in the split-second decision. Sometimes they were okay with getting a small shock. But afterwards, that kind of triggered an impulse in them where they don't want to get shock anymore. So they ended up always going for the safer route, which is the longer route, even though that the amount of yield is very less. Are you able to understand the whole story? Yeah. And so at the end of the whole day, when they got everyone together, they came to know that initially they were not afraid to take the shortcut route. But a couple of times when they got a shock, when they made a mistake and they got a shock, they stopped clicking the shortcut method, but they always went forward with the long method. And that is the way they said. And the way they said is, fear works to dominate your thought life. The way fear is channeled is every single time you're afraid of something, no matter what it is, it will stop you from thinking properly with your head. And the moment you stop thinking properly with your head, you start taking bad decisions. That's scientifically proven. But then you may say, oh, why do you have to scientifically prove it? It's already there in the Bible. That's fine, that's true. This is for people who who also want a scientific explanation. I'm just giving it happened. And then when this fear is introduced to a person, when fear is introduced to you because of actions that happened in the past or some element that happened in the past, automatically we become scared of that aspect, and then we kind of run away from whatever that is. We do not know if this time it's going to happen or not, but again, we want to be at a safe arm's length. That is fear overtaking our consciousness, fear overtaking our conscious thought process. And then the Bible also says that fear takes control of our emotions. It steals our joy, it steals our enthusiasm, and it steals every single aspect of our life. That is fear. I would like all of us to take our Bibles to Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 17 and 19. Or I think you can go to the next slide, yes. Habakkuk chapter 3, 17 to 19. It says, though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes in the vines, though the olive crop fails, and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer, enables me to go on heights never seen before. Right? I'll conclude with a small illustration. It seems a group of friends. You can think of people like Prem, and today Srinivas is missing. I thought of asking him as being one of not asking him, but he would be one of the example guys. A group of friends were there, and what happened was, so a group of friends were there, and they were all working in the same office, and they decided to play a prank on one person. Psychology, right? That's how it works. So they all were like, let us go, we'll have fun when we're going to prank this guy. And so everyone came in 10 minutes or 15 minutes intervals. So the first guy, there's one guy sitting over there doing his work, and the prank started. One guy walks up to him and he says, hey man, are you doing okay? You look a little bit stressed. Are you fine? And he was like, yeah, fine, I'm great. Why, what happened? Right? And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm just asking. You look a little bit, okay, it's okay. And then he goes and sits down. 15 minutes or half an hour later, another friend goes to him and he's like, man, you look so dull today. Is everything fine? Is everything fine at home? Did your mom hit you or something? Like, what exactly happened? Like, why are you so dull? And he's like, no, I'm fine. What are you talking about? I'm absolutely fine. He was like, oh, okay, fine. And then he went off. Another half an hour, another guy comes and he was like, hey man, you look tired. Are you okay? And then he was like, by this time already the emotion levels went down because he was saying that people are saying he's not good. And so what happened? He was like, yeah, I'm feeling good. Maybe I just switch on the fan. I'll be better. And then another half an hour passes and another guy comes and he's like, hey man, you look terrible today. What is wrong with you? By lunch, this guy got so fed up and he was like, oh, something is definitely wrong with me. I think I'm sick. And so he leaves back to his office, right? He leaves the office and goes back home. Why am I saying this? Our Christian life that we have is very carefully given to us by God. When we are adopted into His family, under His wings, giving us protection and giving us His divine providence, the path that we choose becomes a very important path that we choose, because it's going to unravel what is going to follow in the future. Right? At this beginning of time, when we take a wrong decision, the decision that we took because of fear, the problem with that is it is not a conscious decision. The decision made in fear is a decision that we are taking because of unwanted situations, or it's because something is forced upon us. But being a beloved disciple of Christ, being us who are transformed with the death of Christ and with the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and His death on the cross and sacrifice, and the way that He's so special to us, that element should negate the fear that is holding us, and the fear that is enabling us to take the wrong decisions, the fear that is making us take bad decisions and going in the wrong path of wickedness or whatever it could be. The path of wickedness is just one of them. There are many more paths that are there in the world that we accidentally get into and we can't come out because of the bad decisions that we have. Being a transformed disciple of Christ, we should start cultivating the idea or start cultivating the habit where our decisions are not based on fear but are based on faith. Keeping this short message into our hearts, I would request all of us to stand. And I would give some time for Michael and I, and then before that, are there anyone who would want to share a prayer concern or something by any chance? Anyone? Do you want to share a prayer concern?